Hi there everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If you're brand new, then I do welcome you to this episode. And in today's subject, we'll be looking at this Mr. Jones timepiece right here. It is known as the Chaos Window. It's a limited edition of 50 pieces worldwide, so we'll be taking a closer look at this watch, get to see exactly what's happening on the dial, and just go over some details about this particular timepiece. For today's wristwatch check, I'm actually wearing an older timepiece. This is the Hamilton Khaki King, and as you can be able to see, it is the quartz variant. Not a lot of people do not like the quartz variant, but I kind of do, so I stuck with it. So let's check out this particular Mr. Jones watch in a little more depth right now. But before we get to it, I would like to thank the first subscriber of the channel. No, you know who you are. Unfortunately, I don't. But nonetheless, let's take a closer look at this particular Mr. Jones watch right now. Alright, so seeing the watch here, let's get some of the specifications out of the way about this timepiece. The movement that's being housed inside this particular Mr. Jones watch is the STP1-11. This is essentially an ETA 2824-2 copy. We'll be able to kind of see some of the decoration that STP has, which is a bit different than what ETA provides. So we'll be seeing that just in a few minutes when we get to the case back of the watch. But this particular movement is a 4 Hertz movement, so we'll be looking at about 28,800 beats per hour, so about 8 beats per second. It does have a 44-hour power reserve, so just shy of 2 days on this particular watch. The water resistance rating is a reasonable 5 ATM, which isn't fantastic, but it isn't bad either. The crystal for the front and back of the watch, unfortunately, I was not able to find, so unfortunately I'm not too sure exactly which type of crystal will be protecting the watch. The movement, though, does feature hacking, which is actually pretty nice, and when we get a closer look at the watch, we'll be able to see exactly how that looks on this particular timepiece. But thankfully, it does have hand winding, and it does have a rotor in the back, so automatic winding is also a feature to this particular watch. Getting the dimensions out of the way for this Mr. Jones timepiece, the lug-to-lug width here is going to be 48 millimeters. We'll be looking at about 40 millimeters without the lug, so just the radius of the watch. We'll be looking at 41 millimeters across the timepiece with the crown included, about 18 millimeters on the lug width, and the thickness is about 10 millimeters. So if you weren't already able to kind of know and guess what's going on with this particular timepiece, it is pretty odd and hard to read. The way that this watch works is if you look in the center, you'll see that there is a square that's rotating with a little ship on it. So that little square in the center is actually the running seconds for this particular watch. So that's how you read the seconds. The way you read the hours is if you look down here, kind of behind this hand, you'll see that there's another set of ships. So that is actually the hours for the watch. And then for the minutes, you'll see this circle that goes around, which is actually a snake. And at the very head of the snake, you'll see some flame coming out of it, or a depiction of the flame. And that's supposed to be the minutes hand. So to kind of check out to see how this watch actually goes through the time, you pull the crown out all the way. As you can be able to see, it does stop the seconds, and that ship has stopped. But if you go forward, you'll see that snake's head progressing through, and then the ship coming more into view there. So now we've reached about 5 o'clock on the watch, and progress a little bit forward, about 5:45, and now we've reached 6 o'clock. So checking to see how the time works is easy enough once you understand where you're actually looking at in terms of what items on the watch represent the hours. So as you can be able to see, right up here you have 12 o'clock, which is the 12 o'clock position, and then you do have some other objects around the dial which will be placeholders for the hours. So if you look right here where that candle holder is, that's about 1 o'clock. Where the grapes are is about 2. This vase is 3. Hand is 4. This egg is about 5. This pillar is about 6. 7, 8, 9. Then 10 is where this tree is. 11 is that rock. And then back to 12 o'clock again. So it does take some time getting used to and reading, and it kind of goes with its name of a chaos window because it is pretty chaotic if you're looking at it and not knowing what's going on with the dial to be able to read and tell exactly what time it is. So this is a limited edition of 50 pieces. The designer who made this watch is named Edward Carvalho-Monaghan, and he's done some extra work in the past with Mr. Jones on some of their previous timepieces. So I'll leave a link in the description below to check out the Mr. Jones website and see some other watches that he's done for the company as well. But this is the newest edition for it, and the 50 limited edition pieces are all different in their own ways. If you looked up here on the dial at about 11 o'clock, you might have been able to see that there's some writing up here. This is Japanese, and each one of these watches, all 50 of them, had a newspaper inlay for them. So each one of these watches will be just a little bit different in its design and color for the back. So up here in this blank space, about the 12 and 11 o'clock, down here about the 8 o'clock, and over here at about the 4 to 5 o'clock, will be a little bit different on each watch because there are different newspaper printings which are actually placed inside of the dial. So I'll be sure to leave that same link for the pictures as well, and you can be able to see the minor differences with each of the timepieces. But moving on a little bit further from how you can be able to tell the time on this watch, you might have been able to notice that this watch is of high polish all around, so there are no brush portions to this watch whatsoever. Everything is really shiny, and one thing you might be able to notice with the lugs is they are drilled, so because it does have an 18mm lug width, you can be able to swap out straps pretty quickly if you were looking to do so. And even the pin buckle right here, which is also signed, is of a high polish as well. So getting to the back of the watch is the STP1-11, which again is pretty much a clone of an ETA 2824-2, but one thing that you might be able to notice if you do have that particular ETA movement is this one is quite a bit more decorated. You can be able to kind of see if the lighting doesn't reflect too much glare back. The rotor itself, which is not signed, does have some Côte de Genève on there, and the movement itself does have some circular perlage to it, which looks really nice. I mean, when you take in consideration of STP is kind of a movement provider now, that ETA has kind of backed out of a lot of their providing of movements. This is a kind of nice upgrade, to be honest, but you can be able to see that because there is no name on the rotor is just a blank rotor. All the information about the watch is on the glass itself. I know, unfortunately, there's a little bit of glare, but you can be able to see the name of the watch, the designer for it, and then down the bottom as well. But again, it's a pretty surprising amount of detail that this particular movement has given the price point for it. So that's how the movement looks, and just sort of getting another side shots of the watch. You can be able to see again, once again, all of high polished. no brushed, just completely shiny. So it is definitely more of a casual or dress piece than it is anything else. But to kind of get an idea of how it looks on the wrist, I'll be sure to put it on right now so we could be able to check it out and see how it looks. So the watch itself, going over the dimensions, really doesn't wear that big. Again, 48 millimeters lug to lug, but the lugs kind of do taper down a little bit, so you don't get a whole lot of overhang on the watch, as you can be able to see there. There's a little bit of overhang on my wrist, but because the lug is again kind of curved down a bit, they can be able to kind of have a better look than if they were just jutting out straight. But it is a very odd watch. I mean, this is not for everybody, and this is not going to be suited for everybody's taste. So if you like it, I'm not sure if there are any more, unfortunately. There's always hope to check to see, but some will like it and some will hate it, because really it's more of a art piece than it is much of a utilitarian watch where you can actually be able to read the time real quick and very simply. It takes a little bit of getting used to. As you can see, not too high on the wrist. So this has been a review of the Mr. Jones Chaos window. If you liked it, you can be able to kind of put down comments below if you did. There'll be more watches to come. There'll be more topics to be discussed as well. I know that SIHH is just around the corner here, so I'll be kind of following that a little bit. I'm not sure if I'll do anything about it, but it's always fun to check to see what new companies or what companies are coming out with and their new products. So again, this is the Mr. Jones watch. Stick around. There's a lot more to come. Take care, and thank you very much.